All right, good evening, everybody. This is the Board of Education in the new normal. We're here in our respective homes and offices trying to hold it down and bring the services of the Rochester School District to your homes. We've noticed that the viewership is up much more than it used to be when you would have to come down to 131 West Broad Street. We're glad that you're here. We're glad that you're joining us. This is as transparent as the government can be with COVID. And speaking of COVID, we hope everybody is well. The Board of Education is constantly thinking about you folks out there, families, loved ones who are struggling to make sense of this and bring some sense of normalcy. You have our prayers, our thoughts, and we're doing our best to make sure that your children get the services that they need, even as they find themselves at home. So I want to remind folks that this new normal allows us to still hear your voice. If you want to speak or be heard, you can do that. Actually, we have a meeting coming up Thursday. I think it is at 6 o'clock. And what you have to do by noon, I think this the deadline is still the same, by noon of this Thursday, you should send an email to our Board of Education, rcsdk12.org. If you send your statement to that email address, you will also, and I'm sure my board clerk will correct me on this if I'm wrong, you will also have the opportunity to sign in into Zoom and also speak for 2 minutes. Is that right?
Kind of, almost,
Kind of.
President White.
Clarify that then.
When people send an email to Board of Education at rcsdk12.org, they can either submit their comments in writing and those will be posted on the web, or they can indicate that they would like to be a speaker. Anyone who wants to speak has to provide their name, their affiliation, and we will be replying to them with an email that provides the Zoom link and the ability to come in and speak for 2 minutes.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Again, we would encourage folks to tune in and to speak up if that's what you're inclined to do. Next item on the agenda is we have got a special hot topics that we have to discuss, part of board internal business, and we're going to have our clerk sort of lead the way on those conversations.
All right, so our first item of business is the review of the proposed 2020-2021 board meeting calendar. As you know, a few weeks ago, you approved the RCSD meeting calendar for the year. And so this time around, we are introducing this calendar that will be voted on Thursday. So if you could take the opportunity to review it, and then on Thursday, you will be voting on it at the business meeting. Are there any questions about the calendar? Okay, the next item that I want to bring to your attention is the Board of Education departmental budget. There was a question regarding an open position that remains within that budget and the changes that need to be made to it. Those changes require discussion from the board, and they also require a vote on how you wish to proceed with that position. So we can't make any changes until we get the go-ahead from you guys.
Any conversation about that? Anybody want to be heard on how we should proceed? I've got the little hand waving thing going up. I do see Commissioner LeBron raising her physical hand. Commissioner LeBron?
Yeah, can you guys hear me? I'm having technical difficulties, unfortunately, today. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can.
Okay. So I apologize. On my end, I hear you guys a little bit fuzzy, which is why I'm logging off and trying to log back in. So first and foremost, we've had this conversation, or we've talked about this position. I know that there perhaps has not been a final determination from the full board, but I do want to state where I stand on it and still continue to stand that this position should not be filled. In addition to that, there were comments that President White made to City Council after the external auditors discovered the deficit that the board was making reductions and spoke and said that we made reductions by freezing this position. Well, not only are we not out of the clearance with the deficit, but we remain in a larger deficit than any of us could have anticipated right now, and still no sight to when or what the final impact of COVID-19 would be. So saying all of that to say I still support that we just eliminate the position and not fill it at this time. And we cannot, in my opinion, make statements like we should be cutting from central office while allowing us as a board to continue to have positions that do not work directly in front of kids. So I say that to implore my colleagues to not vote in favor of keeping this position. I don't think it would be fiscally responsible of us, and that's my opinion. I know for me, in good conscience, I would not be able to support that. And I recognize and value the work that our staff do. But I do want to point out that when I got here in February, towards the end of February 2018, that position went largely, mostly unfilled in 2018, continued to remain unfilled in 2019, and the work was still continuing to get done. So I think that we still need to have re-conversations about the whole redrafting of the entire board budget. But when it comes to that one particular position, I hope that this board would do the right thing and eliminate it.
Anybody else want to be heard on the subject? I don't see anybody raising their hands. I do want to indicate that, and I don't know if Bob, I don't see if Bob is, oh, I see his nameplate there, but I don't know if Bob is there. Is there a difference? I'm hoping Bob can answer this question, or somebody from finance. If not, maybe Carlene, who I see her nameplate, maybe she can answer. If we say we're not going to fill it this year, in other words, we're not going to expend the funds that are allotted to that line, that is a budget reduction, is it not? And if it's not, Bob or Carlene could perhaps answer that, because I'm not in favor of filling the position this year, but I understand that there might come a time next year where we might in fact need that position. I see you there, Bob. What's the effect of, good evening, what's the effect of not filling it? Is it the same as eliminating it?
Actually, no, Mr. President. You can leave the authorized position on the books, and by having it remain vacant will simply result in budgetary savings, but it's not the same as eliminating the position.
Oh, okay, then that answered my question. I'm just trying to make sure that the community would understand that we're not going to be spending that money in the 2021 fiscal year. If we did not fill it, that would be the result, right? We would save whatever that money was set aside for that position.
Yes, Mr. President, the appropriation would be there. If you choose not to fill it, there would just be a budgetary savings. The only difference is you could unfund the position also without eliminating it. So it would just reside as an authorized position with no dollars behind it.
So I'm sorry, Bob. So it seems that you were presenting another option, unfund it versus not fill it.
Yes, Mr. President, you do have choices. You can leave the authorized position in your budget with an appropriation behind it, yep, and choose not to fill it. And as the year clicks on, that will produce budgetary savings for you. Okay. Or another option for you is to outright eliminate the position, remove it, the authorized position and the dollars from your budget. Or the third option for you is to have the authorized position on the books, just don't put any appropriations behind it. So you could choose to fill it 2 years from now.
Right. That option seems to work best for me, because these are unique and unprecedented times we live in. I believe that I see you there, Natalie. I believe that this position, there may come a time where we need this position. I think we need it now, but we can't afford to fill it. So I think I like the third option. Commissioner Shepard.
Yeah, sorry, I joined a little bit late. So I got in on the end of this, and we are talking about the board's unfilled position, correct? Okay. So I do need to have more conversation around this, because I do think that the work is very, very important. I understand that we are in a financial situation that requires us to dig a little bit deeper. But I do need to have, I would like to have one more conversation actually, because I do think that we've talked about this so long. But I need to have it in executive session because it does have to do with a particular individual.
Well, that might work because we have to go into executive session anyways on one personnel matter. So
Okay.
I'm good with that. Does anybody else want to be heard before we go into executive session? And the public should know that we will come out of executive session at the end of this meeting. And if there's something to vote on, we will do that in public. You should know that the law doesn't allow us to make decisions to vote in executive session. So Commissioner Shepherd will get her question answered or addressed. And then if you're still around, folks, you will see what public comment we can make about that. Anybody else want to be heard on this subject? All right, well, let's get a motion for executive session later on this evening, and we'll talk about that. All right, Marisol, was that it?
Yes, sir. That's it.
All right, so we're good there. Commissioner Adams, you are chair of our Intergovernmental Relations Committee. The gavel is yours.
Good evening. Welcome to the CIGR committee. Normally, we would start this committee off with a motion to review and accept the minutes. But I'm actually going to put in a motion to table the review and acceptance of these minutes until the business meeting on Thursday, the 23rd. I have to use the B word, busy, and I was just unable to have it ready today. So I would like to put in a motion to table this, the acceptance of the minutes until Thursday's business meeting. Can I get a motion?
I'm happy to move that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. And those were the minutes from the November 19th and February 11th meeting that we're gonna table. So to start off, I want to give an update on the parent rep recruitment efforts that we've been on. We're up and live and running. We have a link, we have a website. The applications are online. Marisol, they might be able to put it right up there. We have until May 15th, we'll be accepting applications. I would like to ask all the commissioners to post a link on their social media sites, be it Facebook or Twitter or whatever, to help promote. There also will be a parent rep training this summer. We're gonna probably use Sister Anderson, Toyin Anderson, and some experienced parent reps that we had helping us with that. Also, I want to say that we're not going to do the normal board recognitions that we normally have done. We're going to have to table that for now. The volunteer recognition, the parent recognition. But what we do have in mind is we want to do a student athlete recognition come June 4th. In fact, we've got the ball rolling on that. Is Commissioner of Athletics Kodo here?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. Could you want to step in?
Sure. So every year at the end of the year, we recognize our Scout athletes across the district, and I'd love to continue to do that in the form of a Zoom meeting, if that's all possible, in reference to how that would work, but inviting these particular scholar athletes to the meeting and recognizing them virtually. Also looking to even hopefully look to provide them with their certificates and the plaques prior to this particular meeting, so that they can then receive those, virtually amongst the group here as a whole.
Okay. So that sounds like that sounds like a good plan to me. So I want to discuss, I think those athletes definitely deserve the recognition. Some of them are seniors and on their way out, and so it would be an opportunity for us to give a shout out, hats off to them. So I definitely support that. I believe the rest of the commissioners will be supporting that as well. I also want to talk about the community forum coming up, the fall community forum for Family Engagement Day. We had one last year, it was a success. We need to think about another one this year. We had commissioners doing workshops. I was actually in one of the workshops myself. I wasn't an official commissioner at that time, but I still was at one of the workshops, filling in. And we had some topics. I would like for us to maybe discuss what topics we would like to have this year. I don't know if we would want to repeat the same topics that we had last year. I'm sure we would want to repeat the topics were power of choice, resource panel, school choice, special education. I'm sure special education probably should would be a big choice in light of everything that's going on. But maybe we want to talk about the choices for the other workshops. Does anybody have any
Commissioner
preference?
Adams?
Yes.
Is there a possibility to reach out to the parent group to find out what kind of workshops that they would be interested in attending and participating in? Is that a possibility?
Yes, absolutely is a possibility. Getting parent input. So maybe.
Commissioner Adams?
Yes.
This is the annual family gathering that we do in collaboration with the Office of Parent Engagement. So parent participation is definitely a part of the planning that goes in. What Commissioner Adams is talking about in terms of the topics for the board members are areas that you will be covering with the parents. We certainly will be receiving their input in terms of the areas that they want to talk to you about, but it's also areas that you want to have a discussion with parents about.
So that's in addition to what we would present to the parents. I think that it would be more of an alignment, and that we would be more efficient, even if we could have their input about what we should discuss with them, and certainly from our perspective as board members to inform the community and parents about what it is that we are working on.
We'll certainly make sure that happens.
Commissioner LeBron, you're on mute. Okay.
Yeah, I unmuted myself. I'm having audio issues, so I apologize. But I do think we should add something around the budget and the finances piece, particularly because of the clawback clauses, but also by November, we should have a little bit, hopefully, of a better understanding financially where we're going to land for next year, but also knowing that we're going to start the new budget year with a deficit because of the 10 million from the city council piece of it. So I think it's going to be important that we put it out there as much as possible and be as transparent as possible. I know people are not happy with the cuts that we need to make, unfortunately. But by November, we should have a little bit better understanding fiscally where we're going to land in 21-22 budget year. But it's also important for us to get feedback from parents before we start making cuts, and for the administration who put together the budget together to understand what this community will stand behind and won't stand behind if additional cuts do need to happen.
So I definitely would agree that we would probably need some community input on what the workshops should be. We would also have to take into consideration would be, to be honest, is where we at.
We lost, I think,
Yeah.
Commissioner Adams froze. And
Yep.
I'm wondering if the high winds are actually causing interference with cell towers.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was my phone, my computer or not. There you are, Commissioner Adams, you still?
Am I still froze?
Not now, but you may have to repeat what you said because we didn't hear it.
Okay, so what I was saying is that we also need to take into consideration that we have absolutely no idea where we're going to be at as a district, because we don't even know what venue we're going to be using. We might not be able to use 33 school again. We might have to use Zoom again. We can't just assume that we won't be Zooming. So, I mean, I hope that we ain't, but that's as far as I can go with that. And so if we're still Zooming, the workshops would look a little different, breakout rooms. So it would just pose as brainstorming right now, in reference to the Family Engagement Day. As time moves on, we'll figure out a way to get some input from parents, and the community members, and we'll figure out what's best from there. But we are going to go forward with our student athlete recognition, that's for sure. So, and with that, unless somebody else has some suggestions or something they want to discuss about Family Engagement Day, Natalie.
Yeah,
Commissioner Shepherd.
Yeah, I do think that we should consider having a workshop or a portion of the workshop that that kind of guides parents and students, that shows them how do they get involved in different activities within their schools or district wide. I'm particularly thinking about extracurricular activities, athletic and non. We have a lot of plays that go on within our district, and just different things that kids might be interested in. I would like to see that be a workshop just to kind of streamline some of that. I know that schools do it individually, but if we have parents' attention where we're at, I think that we should take a couple minutes to do that for them.
I also would like to say that at that point, we would also have, or parent reps would be in place by then. So we will be able to kind of pick their brains and have their input on some of these topics, and they can even possibly help us. Of course, if we do a workshop on the finances, we would have the financial parent rep help to facilitate that workshop. And if we had one on the athletics, and so we could have one with regard to the community intergovernmental relations parent represent there, et cetera, et cetera. So really looking forward to getting this planned and having more topics of interest for the community to discuss with us.
Makes sense. I see Commissioner Adams. I don't know if Commissioner Malloy has been raising her hand or that just Lou thing.
No, that I had raised it earlier when we were asked, when he called for the motion. And so, yeah, I don't need to say anything.
Hey, Commissioner Adams.
Yes,
another thing I thought about is if we're going to try to do this in September, I think we should also include something to the effect of what does school look like in the era of COVID-19 or whatever other kind of traumatic environmental issue that may come forth, for them to talk to us about what were their experiences during the time that their children were out of school, and to help us to develop policy around what we can do better if there was another issue similar to this that occurred. How can we better engage family? For example, my sister's grandchild, while they did 2 hours of instruction, she wanted more homework for her granddaughter. She wanted more than 2 hours. And so, how do we, that may be something that other parents or grandparents may want to help to inform our conversation. And how do we, develop policy around that, for example?
And so I would also be interested on how we develop curriculum around this, because I believe we need to put something in our curriculum. The students are seeing this, and they need to try to understand, because I need to try to understand what's going on.
Where is my father?
Commissioner Adams.
Commissioner Powell.
Thank you. If we do have to do the public engagement by Zoom, given that the agenda was to do multiple sessions, breakout sessions, what have you, I wonder if it makes sense to set up multiple Zoom sessions, either concurrent or like we would if they were breakout sessions, or at different times, so that people could tune in to the one that they were most interested in. You're on mute, Commissioner Adams.
So anybody else has any other good suggestions?
I also just wanted to clarify that we will be more than likely having the event in November. It's to be paired with the annual Family Engagement Day that the Office of Parent Engagement usually has. That's a day that they're able to galvanize the community. If you recall, we were able to have tables set up with different community organizations that provided their offerings to the community. We also can do turkey giveaways and basket giveaways to the families, clothing giveaways, like coats and things like that on that day. So we try and pair as much as possible with the Office of Parent Engagement, and we are building on the event that we did last year.
Yes, if I recall, I think they was giving out bikes and everything last year, weren't they?
We did a significant amount of giveaways on that day, lots of clothes too. So.
This is a sort of a different topic, Commissioner Adams, but it brought something to my mind. What's the role of the Parent Engagement Department during this time? And if I can ask Marisol to follow up with that, how are they working with our parents during this COVID-19 era?
So I don't want to speak on what I know they've been involved with the recruiting of the parent rep for the committees, but I really can't speak on is Khadijah on here?
Well, what I've done is just
question log
to follow up with that.
Yes,
I don't need
add it to the question log and get back to you on that.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
So without further ado, I'm going to pass it back to President White.
All right, we're good to go. Hey, listen, I just sent you all, there's applause for you, Commissioner Adams.
That's a record. That's a record right there.
Yeah, it is.
I think you beat my
Vice
record.
President,
Don't try to
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say that.
Your record. I think he beat your record.
Now, who's the king? Who's the king?
I know, Mr. President.
Look at Steve's clapping. Actually, stabbing you in the back.
Oh my God, Steve! Wrong, man. You're wrong.
Gotta give props to you, Commissioner. I'm sorry.
Now he's groveling.
I just sent you all a letter, a draft letter dated April the 14th, 2020 from Michael Casserly. You all may know him. Some of our listening audience may not know him. He's the executive director for the Council of Great City Schools, a very powerful organization in the United States in the education community. They have just drafted a letter which they're going to send to Congress. It essentially has made the arguments that I have been making to them and others that that the money from the CARES Act, Stabilization Act is not getting to us as intended, and they're specifically requesting another version of the Stabilization Act that goes directly to the locals. If anybody knows Michael Casserly, and I assume many of you do, he's an extremely powerful player in the education community. Has spent a lot of time at the White House. His organization is probably the premier organization. So I hope to have some good news. I know that, as you all know, there's another round of stabilization funds that I heard was going to be approved this afternoon. Like the rest of you, I've been watching Senator Schumer and the Senate and the House, Speaker Pelosi, trying to get additional funds. The focus right now, as you all know, is on small businesses. All that money has been gobbled up, but there is a concerted effort by folks like the district, our district, that are concerned that we didn't get the dollars as intended, and that we need to fight for another round of CARES Act funding. I will keep you all informed as that develops. The sad reality is, though, that legislation is not likely to pass before we have to pass our budget. But it certainly, if that funding were to come through, it certainly would insulate us to some extent from any clawback or rollback provisions intended by the governor. And if the governor gets what he's asking for, which is direct money to states, maybe he won't even have to do the clawback provision. So I think the federal government is doing something like what, sadly, we have been forced to do over the years, which is to go into debt to provide for the services that this community has. Anybody want to be heard on that? There's really not much to say other than the letter, but anybody want to talk about it? Since Commissioner Adams has us on record time, we have a few extra minutes to shoot the bull. So nobody's saying anything. So I'll ask for a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of discussing the terms and conditions of a particular employee.
So moved.
Been moved by Commissioner Powell, I think that's heard, and I think I saw a second from Commissioner LeBron. All those in favor? Oh, it was Commissioner Malloy. I'm sorry, Commissioner Malloy moved that, Madam Clerk. Commissioner LeBron seconded that. All those, got it? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching this broadcast, we are going to go into executive session, as I said, to discuss particular employees' names and what they do and how they do it. And we can't do that in public. We have to do that privately. After we finish that executive session, where we won't be conducting any votes, we're not allowed to do that by law. We'll come back into open session, or somebody will, Tom probably will, and tell you that we're closing off our meeting. So if you don't stick around, good night, and we'll see you Thursday. I think we have a meeting this Thursday at 6 o'clock. Is that right? 6 o'clock. All right. God bless everybody. We'll see you on the other side of this executive session.